Hello, and welcome to episode 99 of The Worst People We Know. I'm Sean Dollahunt.
I'm Mike Flynn.
And I'm Jeff Baldwin.
In today's episode, we're going to talk about meal surcharges due to coronavirus, flights to nowhere, more about TikTok's ticking clock, an update on what we talked about in a recent episode, and the unit economics of lighter foldable scooters. Wanted to pause and wish everybody a happy Yom Kippur. I think that's the day this episode's coming out, so do whatever you want to do to celebrate that, I guess. I don't quite know.
I was raised Catholic.
Fish.
Yeah. This is the Day of Atonement, is it not?
Is that it?
I don't know. I think it's all part of the new year. Someone was explaining to me. A half Jew was explaining to me recently. But Rosh Hashanah was last week. Yom Kippur is this week. But you're probably right. It sounds.
I just know if you went to high school in New Jersey, you would get those days off from school. And that when I went to school in Ohio growing up, we did not get those days off, and nobody had any idea what they were.
That's what my son understands about any and all religion. Like, I don't think that he could tell you the names of any religion or necessarily what God is, but he knows that he gets off Jewish holidays.
He appreciates them all
weekends
equally.
and Jewish holidays.
I said the G word around him on vacation, Mike, and he's like, God, is that the guy from Christmas? Like,
did he really say that?
That was his yeah. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean yeah, kinda. Depending on what guy.
Your story checks out.
God is not a reindeer, if that's what he was meaning. Yeah, but yeah,
there's a couple of elements to that, right? So, interestingly, my mother, who would beat me if I wasn't up for 7:30 a.m. mass, is that doesn't care about her grandson being raised in as anything, and
Well, it's more about
I have
discipline.
seen no behavioral difference between me, who was taught to be scared of an imaginary person in the sky, and this person. So, not sorry, people who believe in God. God's great. I mean, if you, whatever,
Sure.
Whatever unifying life force you want. I'm more of a people person, and we should be nice to them, and if there's an imaginary guy who's down with that. Actually, this is a quick sidebar where we're just talking about, religion, as you tend to do.
Tech and God. That's what this podcast is about,
business and tech podcast. Did I ever tell you guys the story about when I had an evangelical in my car?
No,
I don't
think so.
So I was legitimately doing God's work, where I was a full-time volunteer for 2 years working in Philadelphia, trying to help improve the educational resources of under-resourced communities. And I was doing a service project, or prepping a site for a service project that was going to happen on Martin Luther King Day. Martin Luther King Day is always on a Monday. So this was on a Sunday. We're waiting outside the school in February or January, and it was freezing. It was Philadelphia. It was maybe single digits. And we pull up and we're waiting in the car, and the car's running. We're waiting for the principal to show up to open the school. So a woman comes up with her middle school kid and is standing outside of the door, because they also have some other school thing that's going to happen, like a robotics fair or something. And they're just waiting for the door, and they're standing out there in the freezing cold. So being not a terrible human being, roll down the window. Hey, would you like to sit in the car? We're with City Year. We're, this service organization. You can, just stay warm until the school opens up. Great. So they hop in. So 30 seconds in, the first words of the woman's mouth is just have you accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? I was like, oh. And so
God.
What I said, which
Not
was
thanks?
sincere. Huh?
Not thanks. Thanks.
No. Well, I mean, it probably was. That probably helped,
okay. There's some
right?
pleasantries
but
first.
yeah,
okay.
it was not long before we got to accepting Jesus Christ as your Lord and
Gotcha.
Savior, and there wasn't a really good segue.
Right.
And so I said, off the fly, also genuine. I said, I believe that if you live your life the way the Bible says Jesus Christ lived his life, then you're probably pretty good. And I still believe that, right?
Sure.
Bible's
Amen.
pretty good. Jesus, pretty good guy you'd introduce your daughter to,
Yeah.
I don't necessarily have to believe in all the rules about whether or not I eat how long before Mass starts, or go every Sunday or ever.
speaking of Yom Kippur, I feel like that's where they come from. Like there's a lot of these like eat this and don't do that, and
yeah. Well, Yom Kippur is the Day of Atonement, the holiest of days. So you just say, "Hey, I'm sorry for all the things that I didn't
breaking
do
all
for
the rules
364
that we made up to."
Yeah. Yom Kippur. So anyway, that was a sidebar, and it's weird that my kid doesn't know anything about Jesus, but it doesn't, or God, but he seems fine with it.
Have
There'll
you
be,
guys
there'll
seen
be an Apple TV show about Jesus at some point.
Eventually.
Like,
Eventually.
Well, that's the problem. Is
He'll
like,
catch
is
on.
he going to get the references? That's really the
True.
thing.
Yeah,
True. Well, I felt like
my
in
wife gets no Bible references.
They weren't raised religious at all?
So there's like a very thin line between I believe in everything and I believe in nothing. So
nihilists.
technically, she was a Unitarian Universalist.
Okay.
And so if you've ever been in a Unitarian Universalist church, like sometimes they'll have like statues of Darden in them. So I think the only thing they universally believe in is not hurting people.
Okay, well, that's a good thing to believe, I suppose. Yeah, I felt like growing up here, everyone was Catholic, and like CCD was kind of like part of the social
social scene.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like that's where you saw all these people, and like so. Anyway, but have you guys seen the show Unorthodox on Netflix?
I have seen the show on Orthodox. Yeah, intense.
It's quite good, and I see a lot of these the Hasidic Jews in Brooklyn these days. They, by the way, not big fans of wearing masks or moving when you're approaching them on the sidewalk or being nice people in any way, shape, or form. But
Dr. Rogers said not big rule followers. See, that's what because I think like there was when all that stuff was happening, Brooklyn was having the worst coronavirus
But they love
outbreaks.
rules. Like, weren't we just talking about that? All the religious
They're
They love
specific
rules.
ones,
Well,
not the ones from people who are not their people who are rabbis.
Right. Like the governor
I
of
think if you
New
like
York,
rules, you just like any
not a
rule. You'd be
rabbi.
like, yeah, I can get behind this. This is just love obeying things.
No. In fact, there's somebody who I follow on Facebook closely. Really, really loves the rules about no abortion. Hates the rules about masks.
Yeah, well,
Also,
that
not
is-
a fan of the rules about any vaccination for their children.
Right.
That's just a rule set I can't get behind. Like, we got to mix that rule set.
It's a strange correlation of rule sets to follow, and I would say the same for like you watch these guys walk around in Brooklyn, 95-degree weather with like large black jackets on and scarves
Not for me.
and hats, and I'm like,
Yeah.
how do you
Pass.
I wouldn't believe
Miami.
just by
Miami,
because
I
of
would
that.
go down there for work.
Oh,
It's even worse.
that is worse. That's much
It's like
worse.
Hard
100
pass.
degrees and 100% humidity, and everybody else is in a Speedo.
Right.
Yeah. I can't do it. No.
Yeah. Well, speaking of New York, our first news story here.
Speaking of Speedos.
New York City Council voted in favor of a bill that would give restaurants in the city the option to charge 10% on diners' bills, add a 10% surcharge as an economic recovery support measure during the pandemic. I just randomly saw this. This makes no sense to me. Like, why does the government have to tell the restaurants that it's okay to charge more? Can't they just raise the prices?
Raise their prices. Yeah, right?
I'm very confused about it.
Yeah,
Maybe
I don't
people.
to label it a COVID surcharge, but even then, like, I don't think that there would have been a rule against that. Like, you would have had to make a rule to say, like, it does seem strange.
I feel like it's some councilman just trying to like be like, "Hey, I'm fighting for you. Here's some random thing I did."
Yeah, I feel you normally would do that if you're trying to like allocate money to something specifically. Like they set up a COVID fund,
Right?
you tack on 10%, and then it wouldn't go to every restaurant that collect it, but maybe it was like a fund to keep all restaurants afloat. That would make sense. And you just
The
tacking on
government
10%.
would, the government
and then
would
they're
have some
redistributing
role.
it. Like, yeah. But
Yeah, this is
well,
not.
they-
This is just to raise their own revenue, and they can do what they please with it. So it's kind of
Yeah, no, but I think like it's probably not taxed or something of this nature. No.
that could be. Maybe it's
or
not taxed.
even
It
the
didn't-
psychology of it, if people are more willing. I don't know how people. I feel like a lot of people are ordering on apps, and then I feel if you're doing that, you're not that price sensitive because those things cost money to use. So I don't know that, and they usually mark up the food anyway. So
well, yeah, and that's
like
right.
it
I guess
matter
it's
how you present the price increase to people.
transparency
They're still
wise.
gonna-
I suppose it's nice, but I don't know. It does seem to me like it's someone just trying to get his name on a bill and say that he's really helping people, even though
Yeah.
the restaurants could do that
Yeah.
themselves.
And there was a motion. I mean, in San Francisco, I think they did something that was. This had nothing to do with COVID, but a couple of years ago, they added either a minimum wage or some other thing for restaurant workers, and restaurant workers started adding a 5 or 10% and saying, this is a fair employment surcharge or something. And yeah, I don't know. So like, I guess it helps people understand or stay aware if they're labeling it. But yeah, in terms of having a rule for it, doesn't really make a lot of sense. Hopefully the 10% helps. There are some reports that people are estimating upwards of nationally 45% of restaurants might go out of business in the next 6 months to a year. Yeah.
Yeah, that's rough. I do think they're going to come. Well, my theory is, and Flynn, I mean, I'm sure you've got some thoughts on this, given that you're trying to start up a company in the restaurant business.
Sure.
Yeah. It's going to be a shame because I think a lot of them are going to go out of business because they can't float it. I mean, I saw there was a spa I walked by today in Brooklyn that was like just opening up because they were like ready to open right before COVID hit. And you're like, these poor people like probably have all this money tied up in it, got the spot, signed the lease, did all these renovations, and then like this happens, and obviously no one's going to spas, even more so than restaurants. And it is sad that a lot of these places are going to close, but I do feel like New York, at least, I was there this weekend in Brooklyn, and it did seem like things are somewhat returning to normal. Like it's a lot of outside dining. They just got the indoor dining approved for like 25% capacity. And things do look like they're working. People are wearing masks and sitting pretty distant. And like a lot of restaurants have a lot of like sidewalk and street space. It's good to see, but the ones, that don't kind of make it, I just feel like obviously that sucks for those people, but I do think that other people are going to come in and replace those restaurants fairly quickly. I don't see this as like long-term downturn necessarily.
I think the people who are not going to be able to weather this are people who the people who get hit the worst are the ones who their restaurant business is specifically or very focused with a significant portion of their revenue structure around either entertainment or business catering and events. So like, I think New York City specifically, I think you're going to have a lot of restaurants maybe get hit harder because you have so much tourism in a condensed area.
Right.
And so the percentage, even if the average
like
person
the diners
who lives in
on
the
Broadway.
City,
like
what chance do those guys have, right?
Yeah.
Right.
True.
And you think about some other businesses that like might be set up with a cost structure to expect that they're going to be doing catering for next to a convention center, right? And so you're like, all right, well, I expect to be hosting events like 3 nights a week for convention attendees who are going to have exhibitors are going to have off campus parties or whatever. So those guys are going to be in trouble. I think some of the other stuff, obviously there's the variable costs. If like you're talking about food, if people are ordering less, you're spending less on food. There's going to be some stuff where people are eating a lot of pain where like stuff went bad because they were anticipating higher volumes. Yeah, that's not great. But then then it goes to the fixed. And like we've talked about this a bunch of times, which is rent. And so what's going to actually happen with rent? Are the people who are renting to these restaurants going to give in and reduce payments or accept some kind of structure? And is the government going to potentially offer any sort of bailout? There is a guy whose name escapes me right now, but this will actually go in a newsletter for Dashy Dash later this week. In March, he had proposed an interesting structure. He's got a great background. He's a restaurateur from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, as well as a labor economist. And so he was oddly
nice.
suited to write a paper about what should happen in this particular situation. And he was suggesting the government offer to 0% loans that are paid back over 20 years of up to 200% annual revenue to get them through like a 2-year period, which could be interesting if you can prove like you're an existing somebody who's just about to open who just sunk $100K into a rebuild, probably not in a good shape.
Right.
But yeah, and I think the other thing that's really concerning is what's going to happen with winter, right? So like if you're in San Francisco, great, you've got plenty of outdoor. I was just outside in my neighborhood.
Winter there.
Yeah, it's always winter, but like it's like always cold fall. It's never it's never 0 degrees. And there's every restaurant has outdoor space built outside now where they've got like these little parklets built into over like the parking spaces that would have been in front of their buildings. And this one restaurant that we go to where we order from quite frequently, they had more seating outdoor than they used to have indoor. And like they've got tables like in front of like the flower shop next door, which is never open at night, and like the bank, and like so that's just never open past 5 p.m. And so that place was booming last night. Other places are not going to be as lucky, and particularly places where it just gets cold in the wintertime if you have to be at 25% capacity.
Yeah.
Some of these things are going to change. Like New York's talking about 25% capacity going to 50% capacity inside by October, as long as they can keep the numbers down. But if we get a third wave, then we'll see how that goes too.
Yeah. With a school opening and more stuff opening, it'll be interesting. Although I have been pretty pleasant. I've been keeping an eye on that R value for New York just because the Citizen app tells me about it every week or every day, maybe.
Every day,
And it's below 1. It stayed like right around or below 1, even with all these outside stuff opening up in the last month or two. So, fingers crossed. Personally, especially in New York, I feel like 50% capacity is the right capacity for like a dining experience without like having to bump into the table next to you to sit down.
Yeah. New York City, 50% capacity is the right to be comfortable.
Yeah, exactly.
100% capacity in New York City is like you are actually eating at a table of 16 people if you're on a 2-person date.
Exactly. But that's probably they have to do that for, revenue reasons or profit reasons. So.
Well, now they got an extra 10%, so they'll be rolling in the dough.
Finally, they can get that extra 10%. So that was the first somewhat inconsequential COVID news. The second one I have is the Australian flight to nowhere, which is, I guess, Qantas Airlines has sold a flight that departs from Sydney, flies over the Great Barrier Reef and the Australian outback before returning to Sydney, essentially going nowhere, and sold out in 10 minutes. It's on a 787, so it's a very large jet. And it's,
good windows.
What's that? Yeah, big windows, yep. I don't know. Have you guys ever flown on one of those? They have the dimmable windows, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, they're pretty nice.
No, I haven't. Yeah. That sounds pretty great.
So they've sold out in 10 minutes. They said it's probably the fastest selling flight in Qantas history. People clearly miss travel and the experience of flying. If the demand is there, we'll definitely look to doing more of the scenic flights while we wait for the borders to open. Now, I guess this makes sense in the fact that like Australia is pretty isolated down there, and if all the borders around them are closed, which they likely are, there's really an East Coast and a West Coast, and there's not much else. So I guess people want to go somewhere, but like
Subarus in the middle.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I don't know. I don't think I would want to do this. I mean, I'm not worried about going to a new place. I'm worried about getting on a plane with a bunch of people. But
yeah, and it's still like if you had the window seat, it would be cool. But most people aren't going to have the window seat.
Good
like
point.
You're just on a plane.
So that's the part that was weird to me. I agree. I think like realistically, they mentioned some other things that they're going to do with these flights, like they're going to have celebrity guests or whatever, and so it's just kind of an event. To your point, Jeff, like I don't know, how many cities can you name in Australia?
3.
Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, and that's probably it.
Great. That you just did as well at better than I would do. I've heard of all three of those. I don't know off the top of my head I would be able to name all three. Another one you might have heard of is Brisbane, right?
Yes.
And if you look at, to your point, like there's an East Coast and a West Coast. Perth is
Really
as far
alienate
away
our
from
Australian
Sydney
listeners right now, guys.
Yeah. I mean,
I know.
Australia almost looks like it's the width of China, which I don't know if you guys have heard.
Yeah.
China is a big country.
Right.
And so Perth is on the complete opposite side. It's got to be like a multi-hour flight. I'm trying to like
it's got to be a 6-7
Yeah,
hour
so why
flight, I would
not
think.
why not take a Dreamliner there and get off the plane,
Right.
stretch your legs, and
yeah,
then come
just
back
like
the next
go to
day.
Melbourne. Yeah, like that would make slightly more sense. But yeah, it's just like, particularly the prices weren't inexpensive. It was like $800
No.
bucks.
It was ranging
No, the prices I
between-
like. The prices are all
800
$787, like
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, you're
yeah.
right.
because the plane.
So $800 Australian. So it was 560. They have 566 to 2,700 US dollars. Yeah, that's at the bottom pretty expensive, and at the top very expensive for us. I mean, I don't know. I guess I could see
Have you
people
guys ever had to,
wanting to
like-
fly first class around just to do it. I don't see anyone flying like middle seat economy.
yeah.
Yeah,
For
give me
7
7
hours.
hours to sit in middle seat
Just
economy.
to
That
do
doesn't
it.
really make a lot of sense.
No.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. The
terrible.
thing is, like, the thing about the getting sick, though, yesterday I looked this up when I saw they were going to do this story because I was like, all right, like, I don't want to get sick on a flight. Like, being on a flight feels claustrophobic. I don't get this. But they had 19 cases of COVID in Australia yesterday. There's 25 million people. Okay?
They have 19
So, like,
total new cases for the
new
day.
cases yesterday. Yeah, new
So, like,
cases yesterday.
To put that in perspective, I know New Jersey has like 400 a day, somewhere between 200 and 400 a day now, and that's down from thousands.
Yeah.
Florida is still in the
New
thousands.
Jersey probably has half
California-
the population of Australia.
Right. And California is still
LA,
in
we
the
had 1,300
multiple thousand.
new ones yesterday,
Right.
just in Los Angeles County.
So I
Yay.
have seen like on social media and stuff, I'll see people at bars and stuff, and I'm like, is this just an old video? Like, what's going on? And they're like partying it up like
Yeah,
there's
right.
nothing going. And then it turns out it's in Australia, and I'm like, oh, I guess they don't give a shit. But I guess they shouldn't give a shit if there's only 19 people getting it. So,
Yeah.
well, that makes sense. So they're kind of just twiddling their thumbs, waiting for the world to catch up.
Yeah, they're waiting for the rest of the world to pull their heads out of their bums so
Right.
that they can start to go around and retake their claim as the sex pots of the world. Just hot,
do you
sexy
think-
people flying around. Their funny accents.
Do you think some people are hoping for like a Lost type scenario? Getting on this plane, like
Lost.
Yeah.
They'll crash.
Yeah,
Like
No,
the scenario
no,
that feels like the scenario on the ground right now, so I don't think that anyone's seeking
No.
that out in the air. Although I
Yeah.
haven't heard of any people who were paralyzed who are now able to walk because of this situation.
Maybe soon you'll start hearing
stopped,
about
I
that.
stopped watching the show eventually.
If we start
So-
hearing about polar bear attacks in like the random island woods, then we know
Right.
that this pandemic has jumped the shark.
I'm going to Florida this week, so I'll keep an eye out for polar bears. We'll
That's a
see.
good idea. Thank you. Well,
some
what's the other thing that's going
bankruptcies.
crazy that I don't really understand in the world, Sean?
Oh, TikTok! Remember, didn't we just talk about them on like the
sure
last
did.
episode?
We did, yeah.
President Trump, and then I put in a story here on Friday about something, and now the story's completely changed for like a second or third time. But I think today, I guess I just wanted to talk about it because we had talked about it before. But I was thinking about it. So the current story is ByteDance now, which is the old parent company. The new deal is like they own 80%, and Oracle and Walmart came together to take over the other 20%, and everybody's happy about it. But the original plan when the Trump signed his order was like they shouldn't have any involvement in it. So it seems like nothing's really changed
They
all
still
that much.
have
I don't know
by
quite
far
what
the
it
most-
accomplished.
Yeah. All right. Well,
And I thought, isn't it nice to not even care about like the outcome of this? Because there was this NPR story where they taped or had a recording of a 17-year-old that was like super excited on TikTok saying it's not going to be banned. Like, could you imagine if you were
yeah.
actually worried about the outcome?
Well, I saw a friend of ours this weekend, and we were just talking about how like it's not that this is fun for anyone at any time, but like for our age group, this is we're probably the better age group to have this happen to, right? Like we don't really care. It's like, I'm already working from home a lot, and like, as opposed to like if you're in college, this would suck. If you're in high school, this would suck. And so now we're kind of like, well, this year sucks, and next year we'll get back to. I don't really want to be like partying in clubs or anything anyway, so who cares?
You know what's funny? If I was in high school, I'd be like, oh, this sucks. I'm stuck at home with my freaking parents. And now I'm 39 years old and I have 2 kids. I'm like, this sucks. I'm stuck at home with my kids. It's like, it just turns out I don't like people I'm related to. It's weird.
Goes around,
I
comes
like
around,
them.
Mike.
They're okay. You know. Yeah, that's true. They probably don't care for me either, particularly when I'm rationing their Lego purchases.
Yeah, well, right. That's probably very true.
So I still kind of don't understand why they forced a sale and then they were going to ban the app from being downloaded anyway, and then they said the sale was okay. Like that still confused me. Did anyone have a background on what the hell happened there?
It's not clear to me what changed between like the last time and this, other than now I heard specific percentages, and I don't remember those being tossed around before. But I thought it was still like ByteDance was going to be involved in it. The last story that I read about it was in the New York Times, the second one that's linked in the show notes. And the guy, the point the columnist was basically making was that nothing, like the deal, it's 80% ownership, 20% by the 2 U.S. partners. They'll be paying taxes in the U.S., so that's somehow an exciting like charitable thing that they're doing to pay income taxes like anybody else might have to.
Any business, right?
And then they have like so $5 billion in new tax dollars, and then but part of that I think is also in like education initiatives.
$5 billion? How is that possible?
They're going to hire 20. I think they said like 25,000 people. I don't know.
So
that's a
Trump's
lot of people
this as...
to watch an app where people in spandex like do weird toe dances.
Yeah, I mean,
just fuck this.
It's going to be like an American Jobs idea, even though it's not really. I don't know. Doesn't really
How
change.
much will the Trump administration give me for my app, which will help save jobs in the restaurant industry?
You should
a couple fundraisers.
You should headquarter in China and make all sorts of threats. Maybe
that's a good idea. If Walmart bought 20% of my company, I think it would be worth a lot of money.
Definitely, that would be great.
Yeah.
I had a friend ask me if I was interested in like if I would be entertain buyout offers for Bubble Board, and I was like, sure, but I don't think I'm going to get
what do you got?
Well, isn't there's like a website or something you can put in, and it like estimates. I forget for what kind of companies, but it's like this.
Well, there's like a number of websites that you can go to where you can buy private companies, and just do a private sale. And for,
should we start a worst people we know SPAC, and then go in and do that?
We definitely should.
I think that there's a Shopify marketplace where if you have a Shopify store, like Shopify can verify your quantity of transactions, and then you can just sell it to somebody else who wants to buy it, which I've explored at various times. But so I don't know. So Bubble Board, 10 million.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like I think I have to get revenue and users first, and I think then maybe
just have bubbles be your unit and track however many total bubbles are on the board.
That's a great idea,
and that's tied to the valuation of the company. It's
daily
simple
active
valuation.
Bubbles.
Everybody can get behind that metric. That's a new positive unit economics. Daily active bubbles.
That's right.
The old.
You said you have 700 Twitter
economics.
followers. It's probably like 1 million per Twitter follower.
That makes sense. I think that's a fair, generous assumption.
Yeah.
Yeah, the TikTok thing. Yeah, so it really is just 20%. 12.5% will be Oracle. 7.5% will be Walmart. The 4 of the 5 board members will be American, which I guess is positive. Oracle will provide secure cloud services that satisfy national security concerns about the Chinese-owned app.
Do you think they'll sub it out to Amazon Web Services or
Probably. I mean, I don't know. I know, like, obviously Oracle knows something about technology and cloud services, but I'm not really entirely sure they do. Like, I feel like that's more like, hey, we'll sell you this cloud, which is really like you're buying servers that are located in our data center. Like, I don't know. They don't actually have a
it's
cloud
like we're
product.
storing the data in our, like, whatever, like our
physical
on
infrastructure,
our, like, soil. Yeah. Is nobody in China ever going to query the database? Is that what's going to happen?
And
that's never going to pull a CSV.
That's a point I was brought up last week, which is like, Oracle is now securing the data as if China is going to like hack into it, like you log in with Chinese government login. Like, no, it's just if they're really giving it to them, they're going to still give it to them. There's no change here, but I don't know. I mean, 4 of the 5 board members, I think that is somewhat important because that's
about the same percentage of the number of people in the Trump family who are American, so that makes sense.
Yeah, there you go. So, I don't know. That's a weird one, and it'll probably change 5 times before this episode even comes out. Who knows?
Yep.
Although, apparently it's approved.
Well, did you guys race to try and download TikTok before this? You thought this ban was coming in?
Shockingly, no. I did not.
The only thing that I know about TikTok is when I was searching for somebody's name on Instagram like knocked off TikTok with some product called Reels, and so I was like going to type their name in like the search bar, and they have all these like preview things underneath it automatically. I'm like, why are all these fucking videos of people dancing in spandex? Who are these people?
Seriously.
And I was like, oh, this is their TikTok knockoff that they're like spamming in front of me.
And
great.
I think that's what annoys me most about these new apps is like, hey, if you want to have some app where teenagers show the new dance craves, that's great. Good for you. Have at it. Enjoy that. I'm not downloading it. I have zero interest in that. But then Instagram, something I do use, now it's like, oh, you logged in? We're going to show you this bullshit first. That's a ripoff of someone else's popular app that you don't want to see and you didn't download. But that's what they're doing. Gotta love Facebook.
The other thing that I've
Always
seen a
helping.
lot of
Zuckerberg.
Zuckerberg.
about
Yeah. Taking somebody else's idea.
I mean, they're very good
very
at that.
surprising.
They do it very quickly. I'm not entirely sure how stories and reels are different either, but oh well.
Nope.
I guess that doesn't
kind of
matter.
a loss for me as well.
Yeah.
Guys, we're supposed to be social distancing now. You're not supposed to be on those things. Isn't that how that works? No?
I think you mistake that.
No, I think you just hold the phone further away from you when you're on the...
Maybe that's it.
Yeah, that's how I use Facebook now. Also because my eyes aren't real good. You can see far, but not close up, depending on which glasses I'm wearing. That's the real problem with the TikTok users. Their eyes are too good. That's why they can't social distance.
Yeah.
Woo!
Speaking of Zuckerberg,
all right, from Zuckerberg to Bird, yeah.
Bird apps. I mean, it's been a while since we talked about scooters. I think we're really due some good scooter news. I would imagine the scooter industry has been somewhat hurt by this whole pandemic. I mean,
I just recently saw them out on the streets again.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I hadn't really seen many birds around, and now I do. So
yeah. So as like city dwellers, I feel like you originally didn't want to use them, but now you kind of need alternative modes of transportation. You don't want to take public transit. You don't want to take... Like you can take Ubers. I think people are feeling a little bit more safe about that, but it's still a little weird and not socially distant.
they'll
So
still be illegal in
Bird,
California. So
is it what? Oh yeah, it's still legal for a little while.
They'll soon be illegal in California. So it's good to have options.
Did Uber buy Bird or they bought Lime?
I didn't know they
Uber bought
either.
one of these.
Oh,
these crap holes.
I think they bought. But they bought Jump. Let's see here.
They definitely did that.
Bird
to make us sound professional when you guys can hear us Googling.
Yeah. You know. And Uber is going with Bird lookalike. Bird acquired rival. I think Bird's still their own company.
Yeah, I thought they were still their own thing with their... That's a positive unit economics
Santa Monica, California.
What's his guy's name? Vanderzander, right?
Yeah, Vanderzanderbird.
Yeah.
Vanderzanderbird. Lime bought Uber and Uber's
Lime.
Jump.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, that's right.
Yeah,
Right.
but if you go on, like, if I go on the Uber app, I can see Lime. I see Lime scooters.
Oh, okay. So
I
they
wonder
just
if
partnered
you go
with
to
them or
Lime,
something?
Yeah, if you go to Lime, if you get an Uber.
So the news here is that Bird is now releasing their own scooters to buy, which I don't think is a bad idea. I guess they're basically, they buy a lot of scooters, so why not just sell them branded as their
Yeah,
own?
but why would you want a Bird branded one? Then you'd look like you're driving around on a rental. They got to make
true.
it look like it's cool and flashy and personal, not just like, oh, this is just a.
So
it's like if you
Uber-
bought like the rental skis.
Uber
Right.
invested $170 million in Lime. Okay. Lime raised a round of 170 million. The round was led by Uber, and Alphabet participated, or GV, Google Ventures, and Bain also participated. You know what the valuation was?
Like 600 million?
It was like 510. Yeah, which is a 79% drop from its previous valuation.
Oh, that's right, because they were valued at like $2 billion at one point, right?
Can you
Something
imagine?
crazy.
Like,
Yeah.
what a fuck! This is such a stupid business. This makes no fucking sense.
So I go back and forth on this because the image that they were painting, like, okay, so when these scooters first came out, like, yes, they're just scooters. Yes, it's whatever. But the image that they were painting was they were going to be like mobility for the future. And that was the same image that like Segway was painting at one point, right? Like, this is going to change everything. People are going to ride these things around. And like, yeah, right now it's silly Razor scooters that go by themselves. But like in the future, it'll be whatever, something more interesting or better or in some way. I do like that idea of the future, and I do buy into that idea of the future. I do think like cities will be different, right? We're going to have less cars on the road, especially now that they're taking
was like
streets
the
away.
The picture, on the Eater article we talked about first. Just looking at that, they've got like the street is open to closed to cars. It looks like open to pedestrian. A lot of dining going on it. Like that's perfect to zip along a Bird through streets like that. But like it's tough in some places in LA. You're driving along and like people are going 50 miles an hour next to you, and you're just on this little scooter.
Well,
on the shoulder of a road, and you're like, this doesn't look so safe.
I wouldn't also,
but
put
on a college
LA
campus, San Francisco, it could be good.
Like LA is not like a model like urban environment either. Everyone loves their cars and whatnot. But like New York is closing. They were already closing down streets. Manhattan, at least, was closing down streets to pedestrian areas, and now they're closing down more streets, even in the boroughs, outer boroughs, because of the kids got to be outside to do something. They can't go anywhere. They don't want a billion people in the park, so they're closing down streets just to have a place for people to ride their bikes or do something. So anyway, I buy into this whole future idea of it, and I do think it could be huge, but the way that they obviously the VCs got a little bit ahead of themselves and were like, oh, well, these guys are going to do it, and they're going to do it in the next 5 years. That's not happening. Yeah. That didn't happen.
There needs to be like investment or lobbying on like the side of cities to get things like that to happen.
That's the thing, right? That's why it's a problem, right? Because it's not just about, I have some solution. It's like, no, actually, you need a coordinated solution with the city that structures it and like makes it so that you're not picking off Lime scooters with your car by accident left and right.
Well, that's true too. Well, but eventually that'll happen, right? I mean, eventually, even naturally,
trying to pick them off right now.
Eventually, we're naturally going to get to a place like that.
Yeah, but eventually, like they
10, 20 years.
If you think you've got a company that's worth 500 million to 2 billion, like spend a little bit of that money and start making some changes. I think there's a lot of cities that are interested in these things and they struggle with finding funds for them. But if
that's true.
Somebody like this can pop some money into it. Like New York's a great example because they've done a lot of that. But I was doing work in Texas a few years ago, and they actually had the voters pass something where they called it complete streets, and they picked 9 different areas or neighborhoods where they went through and were putting in bike lanes, widening the sidewalks, putting in things to slow down car traffic, discourage people from going on one road versus another. San Francisco does a lot of that, like where they've got the different one
Where
road
in
has
Texas
bus
was
lanes,
that?
one lane's got bike. Austin, Texas.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
That's a spot to be. Like, I mean, now it's probably too late to get into that, but that city, they've been spending a lot on like converting their transportation stuff I was talking about. But Tesla's going in there.
yeah.
Like
New
for a while, they
Gigafactory.
were thinking like Amazon was going to be there. I guess that didn't quite happen, but like it's definitely a booming.
It is booming.
Well, when
Booming
we had
place.
Jason, our VC friend, on, I mean, didn't he say something like there was a net 45 people a day coming into
Coming in.
Austin or something? Like it was absurd, whatever it was.
I feel like every like San Francisco techie person that I like follow in some way on social media has moved from San Francisco to Austin. Like they're all,
Yeah.
everyone's just going there.
So I think now it's too late. Like everything's
Yeah.
been driven. Like it's not San Francisco expensive, I doubt, but it's probably a little bit crazy compared to what it used to be there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Mm-hmm.
But they are doing a lot of that good stuff. So maybe there's a reason.
So
Yeah.
this was an article that I think we were talking about with Bird. They came out with this. They have a scooter called Bird One, which is like a super expensive scooter, and they just came out with this new one called Bird Air, which is $599, which is like around the same price point as some other scooters that you can buy yourself. It's 16. It goes 16 miles per hour. You can buy
And
it
other
at
Air
Target.
products too, isn't that the iPad Air prices?
Yes,
around $600?
that's
Yeah.
It's like-
that's where
Doesn't take
where
you
the
anywhere.
rest of their valuation is going to go. Is Apple's going to sue them into oblivion for stealing their Air like name. But yeah, so I don't know. Like I don't need an e-scooter right now because I don't really commute, and nor will
Well,
anyone else. In
Jeff and
Shelby
I tried
City
to
for the
ride
next 2
those in
years,
your
for sure.
neighborhood. They're impossible in your neighborhood. Like they don't.
Yeah.
Your hills are crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's
one
the
of
other
problems.
thing that's like, is like, I just need to recognize that I don't necessarily live in an area that makes it in any way conducive to me having one of these. Although Marty did just buy an electric bike, as we've mentioned, for much
That's
more
why
than
it was so
$600.
expensive. Now that all makes sense to me. I was like, what is he getting into, like Lance Armstrong territory or?
Oh yeah,
Well,
no, yeah,
so-
Those electric
it's a
bikes are
nice bike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Sure it is.
It's a
I know,
Turn
I do,
TERN.
but I do feel like people are trying to go, like especially city people, because like they're buying bikes. Like everyone without a bike that was just taking the subway everywhere is like, oh, okay, now I want a bike because I really don't want to be on the subway, or something like this. Not that I think, I don't know. It's a weird model selling the scooter that you're renting because you're obviously renting it for more. You're making more revenue renting it. But I suppose if I wouldn't want to be renting these if I was using it every day or even a couple times a week.
Well,
'Cause you can't trust
you're
them
basically
be
creating
there.
this a scooter culture around that point. Like you might even own your scooter,
True,
but
yeah.
you might be taking a one-way trip, meeting up with friends, and you're like, I know how to do scooting. I've got my scooter license, got my account. I'm ready to go. Like this one's just a rental night. Some nights you're going to be using your real one, depending on what you're doing. So
Right.
Well, there was a period of time where when I was downtown, I would mock people if they didn't have a Scoot account. It's like,
Yeah,
what,
you
you just
were
can't get on a
part of the
Scoot
scooter
and you
culture.
can't just ride, your electric scooter? That's embarrassing. See you guys later. Maybe you'll get to where we'll be in an hour. I'll already have a few drinks in me.
The Scoot thing, that's taking off again in New York. So Revel is the one that was in New York. And I saw some people do some stupid shit on Scoots in San Francisco. For people that don't know, Scoot is basically an electric moped that looks like kind of like a Vespa, but doesn't go very fast. It goes, you rented them, it goes like 20 miles an hour or something.
Yeah.
So it's only on city streets.
2025, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you can drive in traffic with it, and it's basically like having a motorcycle to some extent within a city. You drive on the road
within San Francisco. I don't think there was ever an opportunity to go faster than
right.
it could go. Like the traffic was just so much where it was like, this is as fast as anyone around me can go. So it was great. And then you can go between all the cars, which is great. And
It is great.
the other occasions where it was like fantastic is baseball game, right? Like Baseball game's letting out. Good luck getting an Uber in the next 45 minutes. Like, no chance, right? Oh, there's 5 scoots right there. Peace. Nice to know you guys. See you later. I'll be home in 15 minutes. Those are pretty good.
I love the idea, and Revel is the one doing a similar thing in New York. They shut down because people were getting in all sorts of accidents, and I have seen some people do some really stupid shit on those things, like as if they're just pedestrians and they're just zipping through red lights, like really dumb shit. I think someone died on one, and so they shut down. They opened up like 2 weeks later, so I don't really know why. Like, they're like, we figured it all out,
There's
guys.
a cultural aspect here where it's just like
think
the
yeah,
way
we
that
figured out
people
the legal
drive in
side of it.
Manhattan versus just being in San Francisco. It's like people are just a little bit more laid back.
Yeah. I think that's very true. And the people drive, I mean, because the ones I've seen are out in Brooklyn, and you're near a highway. It's not a, there's some fast drivers and idiots and all of those things. So, but we are getting more and more to this rental culture or scooter culture, and I'm all for it, but I'm not really sure how it's all going to come about. $600 for one of these things doesn't seem so bad.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you could justify it. I think you could justify it.
Would you though? This thing folds. You can take it inside.
But I was thinking about that. Like, you go to the office, like where I used to work in San Francisco, you could get a bike locker through the building, and some buildings are pretty good about that. And they had showers and all sorts of things. It was a nice facility. Where I work in LA, it's not quite the same. There's a bike rack in the parking garage, but it's still like safe, secure. But I don't know, if you went into an office building, you're going to be carrying your bird, like putting it in your cubicle. All your coworkers are tripping over it. Like, it's
I would have done it. I mean, I rode a skateboard to work. I threw that in my cubicle.
Yeah.
Like, if this folded up isn't that much worse than that. And like, I think that is like your point, Sean, of like, people's work environments are highly variable, particularly in San Francisco where nobody gives a crap, right? But like, you could be at some super fancy startup like we had. Obviously at Eventbrite, you've got a kombucha keg. You're going to have multiple bike rooms. So we had, like, you just brought your bike in the elevator and you just hung it up when you got up to the 7th floor. But you could be at like a super normal, like a bank in a normal building downtown. They're not going to have that crap, right? And so like, I don't know. I think maybe you throw your bird underneath your cube.
They need like bird hubs, maybe like down in the financial district or something. They've got,
I think they call them nests.
Yeah, a bird nest. And do they serve like coffee and stuff around there? Monetize the space. People charge their birds. They dock them there for the day while they're in the office. Mm-hmm. Now I'm getting excited about bird. If it's just like selling scooters and like rentals. This
idea is coming home to roost.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. That's all I really have to say about bird. I hope their unit economics on these are good.
Somebody should do a little break even. Well, I want like a break even analysis of like the purchase versus rental. How many miles per day you have to be getting out of the thing. Like,
so my problem with rentals in all forms, even like a zip car type thing, is you always think it's going to be like, oh, this will be great. I don't have a fixed cost, and I'll just pay for it when I need it. But when you need it, I shouldn't say it's never there. It's very 50% of the time, I think, would be optimistic. Sean, you and I, now given this was in the beginning of all the scooters, we've spent hours collectively walking around thinking there was a stupid scooter there because the app told us there was.
Especially trying to find two. I think that's like a challenge that we were having.
True.
But it took a while even just to find one. But I'm looking like the app by me that says there are two in walking distance in my neighborhood. And sometimes when they first launch, there's an obnoxious amount. But I hear your point. I think it's tough to rely on it. I think the zip cars are a little bit different because people they'd want them like for a long weekend, holiday weekend, or over the weekend. Right. This is a little bit more random trips. So I don't know. It's $1 to start a trip.
Yeah, well, and maybe in like an area where you just know they're there, right? If you're in Venice, Venice Beach, they're everywhere, and you're like, okay, there's not going to be a problem. But I felt like there was a bit of a scarcity when they first rolled out, even though they seemed to be everywhere. When you wanted one, you couldn't find one. And I think that would be the difference, to your point, Mike, about like a baseball game. the scoots were probably available because people needed to like take a lesson and have a motorcycle license or I forget, I think it was either way, but you still needed to like do some planning up front. With this, everyone's going to take those things and use them and go home or throw them in the trash. And they're going to be gone in any situation, like in any, not any situation, but a lot of situations you'd want to use them. So I don't know. I could see wanting to own one, but I don't own one. So there's that.
Well, that's the other thing, though. Like if you do own it, you can't take it to the baseball game because you can't.
That's a very good
You're not
point.
bringing it into.
But if they had the bird
Right.
nest at Oracle Park or whatever it's called, is it that?
Yeah.
AT&T Park.
Yeah,
It's
I think
AT&T
Oracle.
still.
I don't know.
Is it Oracle now?
No,
AT&T?
I thought they changed it. Oracle, they lost the Warriors arena.
They had to save all that money to
It's Salesforce, right?
to be able to buy TikTok.
Oh yeah. Did they buy it or get it? I thought they got it given to them by the president of the United States.
Oracle
I'm not really
Park.
sure. Yeah.
Oracle Park.
Park.
Oh, is it Oracle?
Yeah.
But
That's
the
stupid.
arena is not Oracle anymore. The
No,
old
it's
arena is Oracle.
Chase, maybe?
Is it Chase? Okay.
Could be.
Oracle Arena, Oakland Arena.
Yeah, that's in
Yeah.
Oakland.
Oh.
But
They haven't closed it yet, so. New Warriors Arena.
Chase Center. I should know that as a
Oh, is that
As
the
a-
one in San Francisco?
Sapphire Elite.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, as a Sapphire Elite, you should know that for sure.
Probably
And,
get free
it
tickets.
doesn't really
there.
matter because no one's going in the damn building for a long time. You know,
Yeah.
those guys play games in a bubble now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we move to recommendations?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Recommendations.
I mean, before we get into that, like I was just thinking about, the next episode is the 100th episode, right?
It is.
100.
Should we be doing some upgrades to should we have recommendation intro music?
Oh.
What should we do to
Yeah,
reward
one of our
the
listeners should
listeners?
compose recommendation intro music and send it to us, or several should, and we'll judge them and pick the best.
That's not a bad idea.
Love that
That's
idea.
a great
Yeah.
idea.
Let's get some user-generated content.
Yeah. So next episode,
Anyway.
we will definitely not have any intro music.
No, definitely not. But somebody might think about it. Anyway, what's your recommendation, Sean?
Are we doing all TV this week? I'm going to go with the Boys on Amazon Prime. It was a listener recommendation. At one point, I watched season 1. Season 2 is out now, and they put out a few to start, and then they are releasing them every week. So I think only about half the season's out. If you want to check it out, it's interesting.
I was into it at first in
superhero.
season 1, and it was just
Yeah.
it was too much for me,
Oh, really? See, I really liked season 1. I haven't watched season 2 yet, and I would like to. But
It is.
it's intense.
It's graphic.
Yeah.
It's graphic.
It's graphic.
Oh, very graphic. Yeah.
Not
Cringe-
not a superhero
cringy.
show for the kids.
No.
No.
But you know what is it like? Well, I say it's a good show because it's wholesome. Is Ted Lasso on Apple Plus, and that's my recommendation. I would again say, although it's a wholesome show, maybe not for the kids. We turned it on the other day, and literally the first scene, it was just 14 F-bombs, and I was like, okay, well, maybe not for Finn yet. But
Oh, this is the
It's,
one with Jason Sudeikis. Yeah, you did mention this before.
it's with Jason
Does look
Sudeikis.
good.
He plays a college football coach who won the Division II national championship with Wichita State, and then is hired to run an English Premiership soccer team. And hilarity ensues. It's great. It's just it starts off, you're thinking maybe this is a little corny, but he's kind of winning you over. And then you get a couple episodes in, and it just gets better and better and better. And I'm just it comes out every Friday. I think there's 8 episodes so far. You should definitely check it out. It's worth the investment if you get some Apple Plus.
What's
And
Apple
if you
TV?
get Apple TV,
cost? $5?
Get it with the bundle and get the fitness program
Half a
too, so
banana?
you can
Heck yeah.
you can work
Yeah,
out
so-
while you're watching Ted Lasso and feel like you're.
I have
yourself
zero
better.
interest in these fitness apps. Zero. I don't know why.
Really?
I just what are they gonna do? What are they gonna do for me? They're gonna tell me hey, you should run for 20 minutes. Oh, okay. I couldn't have figured that out myself. I don't It's not hard to come up with a program an exercise program. I don't get it. Why are you paying
Maybe
for this?
for you.
Well, yeah,
mean-
no, that's true. That's fair because
Yeah.
I've been doing it for a while, so like I know what I want to do and what I don't want to do.
But I think they would give you something better than, hey, run for 20 minutes. So if that's your idea of an exercise program, I would.
I
bet
can
they're-
run for 19 minutes and then walk for a minute and then run for another 2 minutes. How about that? That's pretty complicated.
I don't. What excited me about the Apple one was they even focused on like if you really don't know what you're doing, they've got a whole series for like going from nothing to like we'll get you ready for these classes and walk you through that whole thing. So I think what you're talking about, Jeff, you're like in a steady state of knowing what you want to do.
Yeah, that's
but
fair.
like, if people don't have any idea what to do and they can watch Ted Lasso and then exercise afterwards, like that might not be a bad thing.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. So not for me, but there's value in it.
But to your point, if you just want to subscribe to the TV, $4.99 a month, and I think you get a free year if you buy.
We're trying
like,
to
an Apple
upsell
product.
on the higher subscription, so
Oh, that's a good call.
get more
Yeah,
branch money.
My daughter's gonna have to go to private school in a year or two.
Ranch
So,
money.
yeah, $20 a month. You get the fitness thing. You get arcade, and you get.
I think fitness
music
is
too.
more than
Family.
20, isn't it? It was like
The fitness
far-right
might cost
one, the fitness
25.
one.
Yeah, the fitness
because the
is
fitness
big
one is like. $80.
I'm thinking about the Apple TV one though because they've got this show which I'm interested in, the one with the Always Sunny
Always
guy,
Sunny, yeah.
Rob
Video
McManamy,
game.
Mythic Quest, Raven, something.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I guess that's really the only two I'm interested in. But those two look pretty damn good for $5 a month. That might
And
be
you
worth
know
it.
that they're going to continue to increase their library. And
True.
You might like
those things.
the newest one I saw, which might be a recommendation if I continue watching it, was Ewan McGregor has like this motorcycle show where he rides from the south of South America to LA. And they
Ooh.
decided they'll do it on electric motorcycles. So that got me
Ooh,
intrigued because
yeah.
they're going across like
This is on
the
Apple?
Great Expanse. It's on Apple TV. It
Do you
just
have
came
Apple,
out this
Sean?
week. I do. I bought this iPad that I talked to you guys on came with a
Oh.
free year of Apple TV.
oh, nice.
Yeah.
So
Maybe I'll just do that. I'll just use this as an excuse to spend more money.
Buy an
than I
iPad.
Buy an
would
iPad.
otherwise.
That's the real
You get a
upsell.
free
Is
iPad.
the $5 a month we give away if you spend
Yeah.
$2,000.
You know that is really has a lot more pull for me than it should. It's like, there's a reason. I mean, I'm gonna be spending that $60 anyway. So
It's really
might as
irresponsible
well.
for me to spend $2,000. Well, you get $5 a month back. Well, I mean,
We're talking savings now.
you know what streaming service I just signed up for?
What's that?
Peacock.
Oh, really? Interesting. How much
So-
is that?
It's also like $5 a month.
Okay.
They have a $5 and I think they have a $15. So it's $5 for commercial interruptions and then commercial free is $15 or something like that.
And that's all NBC app or
They also have
shows,
free.
right?
I think so. Like if you can download it on, it's all NBC. Well, it's not. They have a whole back catalog of other stuff and some things that are not on NBC. So like that show Yellowstone with Kevin Costner that it's like on the weird Paramount station is on there. And so, but I bought it because they play the Premiership games on there. Like I went to go watch a Manchester United game this weekend, and I was like, "Where the hell is this thing?" It's not. It wasn't on this other app that I've been using that somebody else's that I've been stealing a subscription to. I was like,
Right.
"It's supposed to be on that."
This is
It
annoying.
used to be if you subscribe to NBC Sports app Gold package, they would be on there, but then they switched that to that only plays the games the next day. And I was like, what the fuck is this? Oh, it's on Peacock now. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So let me just cancel these other 7 subscriptions
Right.
so I can just watch it on Peacock. And I got a bunch of free other crap that came with it, which is nice.
I guess it's nice that these things are available for like a reasonable price, right? You want one thing and it's like, all right, $5 a month, I'll pay for that. As opposed to YouTube TV went from $30 a month, which I thought was reasonable, to $65, which I think is somewhat unreasonable unless you really want a whole cable package. But if I want to watch like F1 racing, which is the only thing I ever watched on it, I'm not paying $65 a month to do that.
No.
At the same time, it's just so overwhelming. There's so many goddamn apps and like different services, and you got to remember which one plays what. But anyway,
Well, that's you can if you have an Apple TV,
yeah.
you can
More
talk to the
product plug.
microphone and just be like, whatever the show is, right? Scooby Doo,
okay.
and it'll be like, what do you want to open this with? It's available in 17 apps.
right. Well, that's the.
But
I
even-
think that's the thing that it concerns me a little bit. I guess I would remember if it's something I watch more than once, but I have the Fire TV and it does the same thing. But it's like, oh, you want to watch this movie? You could watch it for free on Plex, but we're not going to show you that. You could also pay for it for $17.99 on our service. It's like, oh, okay.
The nice part about this freaked me out. The nice part and the bad part is because the bad part is their UI should be better and it shouldn't do this. But like, if you buy something on the Apple TV and you already own it, it just won't charge you. It'll say, oh, you actually already own this in your family plan. We'll just redirect you over there. But
that's
they
nice
should
of
just
them.
know that and not have to show me the $17 and have me worry about it.
Right. Yeah, really. Well, my recommendation is another show on a different platform, The Mandalorian on Disney Plus. Similar to The Boys, I think we've recommended this in the past, but the new season 2 trailer is out. So I liked the season 1. If you're into Star Wars at all, it's pretty good, pretty well done. There's a lot of like somewhat famous people in it. I believe Delahunt's yoga friend is in it to some extent.
Right,
so
that's the most famous guy.
That's
Delahunt's yoga
the
friend.
most famous guy in it. Good show, and the new one is coming out soon. So I don't know, check it out.
Yeah, watch that
Nice.
show first.
Watch what show?
Mandalorian.
That one, yeah, right.
Yeah, and then when you're tired then you can go to the other ones. Yeah.
Sounds good.
You didn't recommend this last week, Mandalorian?
No, I was going
he
to,
did a
and then
switch up.
I switched it up. Yeah,
Gotcha.
switched it up to a Twitter
All right.
account.
Shameless
So, yeah.
plugs.
Shameless plugs.
twpwk.com, and we're at Twitter. Just put a at the beginning and get rid of the .com at the end, and you got the same thing.
There you have it. dashy-dash.com. It's where restaurants are going to go to get terrific insights on how to increase revenue, reduce costs, start thriving instead of just surviving.
Thebubbleboard.com. Check it out if you follow the stock market at all. I mean, it's a frothy market out there, and stocks only go up mostly.
That's right.
Yeah. Sometimes they go down, and you should buy them then, though. So check the bubble board to know.
Exactly.
Buy red, sell green.
Buy red, sell green. Exactly. See a big red bubble, and you buy it, and then it'll be green the next day, hopefully. But it's free to use. I think it's a better way to visualize this stuff. And so, check it out at thebubbleboard.com. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll be back next week with our 100th episode. Woo!
Tell your friends, tell your neighbors. Lucky number 100. It's gonna be extravaganza. I'm not sure if there's gonna be like a Worst People We Know boat parade to celebrate it, but there should.
If there is, none of the boats will sink. We'll
If
just
you're a
say
boat owner, tweet us.
Yeah.
get out of there on a lake.
TWK.
77% of you,
Along with your median
make less than
income.
$100,000 a year, so you're probably not listening to this podcast.
All right. Talk to you then.
Bye.
The Worst People We Know was recorded, edited, and produced in the Golden State, with a little bit of help from the Sunshine State.
The Garden State instead of the Sunshine State, huh?
Thank you for listening. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe and find us on Twitter at TWPWK. Thanks.
All right.
Instead of stopping recording, I almost just hung up on you guys.
That
But
would
I
be
didn't.
terrible. Although, that was a pretty good one. This is like somewhat one of our shorter episodes these days.
Tight episode.
Yeah.
Alrighty then. Somebody just came in the garage, so maybe we just wait a minute till that's
I heard
done.
that.
Okay.
Should we do another garage door opener episode?
Yeah, we should.
Yeah,
Well,
definitely should. Recording.
this guy. Let's get it on this guy. Whoa.
Do you guys have good weekends?
My kids were here the whole weekend.
Oh, that's too bad.
That was a little bit of a downer.
Hashtag LSD Ranch.
Thanks for listening.